mask is probably one of my favorite of all time. This is the Scott Aviation Corporation's Scott Hydro Pack. It's a fascinating and incredible piece of equipment. Now, there's some very interesting elements to this mask in that it was developed through the United States Navy in combination with Scott Aviation. Scott Aviation had actually made their start as a producer of breathing systems for aircraft pilots. And then they dabbled a little bit in the firefighting service, and then in the early 50s, in 1952, in a classified top secret state, they developed this Scott Hydro Pack mask, and by 1953 we're testing it at the Navy's experimental diving unit down in Panama City, Florida. And they tested it, worked with it in 53, and it was a little bit expensive. It was really well engineered and offers some features that were incredible. The mask itself, because of those special features and the high degree of production, was fairly expensive, several $100s at a time in the early 50s, where $200–300 was a lot of money. And so the Navy opted to not order them, and so Scott Aviation opted to introduce them to the public in 1954. And so they came out. They were expensive at a time when you could buy a regulator and a mask combo for $49.95. This was a system that was several $100s, and then so they didn't have real brisk sales, but they did sell some. By 1957, they just opted out altogether and decided that it just wasn't something that was going to catch hold in a very, very small diving industry that wasn't really what it is today by any means. And so they opted out, and what they did instead is they took the similar system of full face mask, and they just went into an entirely different direction, which was the firefighting service. And Scott Aviation eventually became Scott Safety and Supply, which is a division of another larger corporation today, the 3M Corporation, and they are one of the leaders in firefighter breathing systems. So if you go to most fire departments, you can many times find Scott packs, which are the firefighting systems that they use, which owe a lot of their design and evolution from this diving system. Anyway, one of the neat features is that it had a snorkel on the side that you could use, and then once you got ready to actually do your descent, you could screw down the snorkel, shut it off, and then you began breathing from the system. And it had its own second stage regulator and a hose that was attached to your backpack in the first stage regulator. It had a balance tube that ran from side to side, so that no matter what posture that you were in the water, you always had some ambient pressure on that diaphragm, so it was ready to deliver air without a lag or a delay. And so it was well engineered at the time, pretty dynamic piece of equipment. Our next mask is just a fun one. It's a U.S. Diver Cyclops mask from 1957. In the early days of mask design, really, there was a lot of experimentation. Anything that would maybe be a gimmick or something like that might catch hold and be a sales point. And the Cyclops mask is one of those examples. It's kind of got a split lens, it's got a crease in the middle, and it doesn't really do anything for the wearer at all, other than it has a sort of a gimmick. I believe that the idea was that it was supposed to balance your view in the water. How that would be any different than a flat lens mask, I don't know, but it was something that was tried out. It didn't last long, but like I said, it was a gimmick, and it's a rare mask to find today. Many of these masks, just because of the rubber skirts and things like that, some of them being 50, 60, 70 years old, it's amazing that they're even intact today. Our next mask is a void purge mask. It's not a whole lot unlike the B4 mask, except that the lens has been reduced, so it's a smaller volume mask. And now they've got a purge incorporated into the skirt of the mask, and that makes it simpler to purge water out of the mask by just simply exhaling. And that was one of the first masks that actually incorporated that. This void spearfisher mask is very unique in that it's simple design. It's not in of itself anything really noteworthy in the mask evolution, except that the company spearfisher that contracted with Voigt to make some of their rubber products. They often, as part of their contractual agreement, would put a little spearfisherman or a skin diver on their product as a dual logo. So even though they were making a product for, say, Voigt, for instance, they would also incorporate a little spearfisherman or skin diver on the rubber product as an embossed feature that showed that they were the manufacturer. So they sort of had a dual logo on a product, and that was part of their distribution agreement. And so this mast on the top, on the right and left-hand side, is embossed, and I will try to bring it over so you can see. It might be tough, but it has the dual Voigt sign and the dual spearfisherman skin divers on there. One of the interesting features of mask design is how oftentimes some of the features or design aspects of a mask will carry forward and wind up being incorporated in modern designs. Some things are lost, they didn't work well, you know, materials, what have you, those things get sort of erased over time, and some things last. This is a perfect example of some of the things that we're able to carry forward. In 1963, Scuba Pro Corporation released what was going to be their big introduction into the diving industry, which was their Visionaire mask. And this Visionaire mask was unique in that as a design, it has a first stage regulator that would attach to the bottle, had a single hose versus the common double hose systems at the time. And the second stage of the regulator was the mask itself. And if you can look at this, when the diver would inhale, the water pressure would actually activate the lens itself. And by moving the lens back, it activated the air tablet. So the lens became the diaphragm of the second stage of the regulator, and would open the air valve and blow air into the diver's face to breathe. And then there was an exhaust valve right here with ports on both the left and right sides of the frame, so you could just blow with your mouth and exhale the mask. If you got water in the mask, this is getting to the feature that I want to describe. If you got water into the mask, the diver could simply push on the lens and purge the mask, blow air into it, and then you could grab a little rubber tab on the bottom of the skirt and pull down, and it effectively created a spillway and would purge and blow the water out of the mask. Now, fast forward to 2017 with Ocean Technology Systems, when they introduced their Spectrum mask, which has a lot of great features for a modern mask. It's robust, it's well designed and built. It has an iridium coated lens in order to enhance light for the wearer. It has an ability to incorporate some of the Ocean Technology Systems communications equipment, but you can also use it with a rebreather, single hose, double hose regulator, whatever your particular needs are. You can set it up for that. But at the very bottom of the chin, it has a little pull tab, identical to this kind of system, and it allows the wearer to pull down, create a spillway, and help purge the face with the mask. So it's a pretty neat design. This is a great mask. This is a Kirby Morgan M48 Super Mask, and this is a mil-spec mask. This was designed primarily for military teams to use with rebreather systems, and it's a great mask. Incorporate comm equipment, but probably one of the most unique features about this mask is it has a removable, move on to the side, has a removable faceport that can come off. If this was attached to your regulator or to your rebreather system, you could jettison this, and then you could go to an alternate air source, or if you're on the surface, you could talk. This one has a communication system incorporated into it, so you can utilize that to talk to topside or diver to diver. And pretty neat system. Anyway, attach this quickly back, plug it back in, open your mouthpiece if you're using a rebreather, and you're back in business. This very mask I utilized in this photograph here in 2004. I did a 52-mile excursion all the way around Catalina Island utilizing this mask, and I can swear that it worked well, so that's a good testimony to it. But that was a great event. Anyway, This is an interspiral ADHE full face mask. It's been around since the late 70s, early 80s. It's a great piece of equipment made in Sweden, and it's been tried and tested for many decades. It's one of the workhorses in the commercial industry and military teams around the world. And OTS has almost an exact version of the ADHE mask, but it's their own. And they started producing this just over a decade ago. And it's a great system. Incorporates the same features of the communication equipment. This one's set up with a snorkel system that you can shut down at the start of your dive. And this last mask is something that's already out of the marketplace, but it's unique because it's an oceanic data mask, and it had a computer heads-up display integrated right directly into the mask. It was all hands-free instrumentation. Fantastic concept. You know, without getting into a lot of detail, mask is no longer available on the marketplace today. It's a real shame because that's a fantastic mask and I really enjoyed using it. But having all your instrumentation at the ready right there without having to grab anything or look at your wrist is really a nice feature. So anyway, those are masks.